Up to 400 people were marching when the demonstration turned into this clash with police overnight.
L.A. issued a citywide tactical alert that allowed them to arrest people after the protesters threw rocks and bottles at the cops. The injured officer was treated for injuries and released. One suspect is in custody.
All right, similar protests also erupting through the U.S. after Politico published that leaked Supreme Court draft opinion indicating the court might indeed overturn Roe v. Wade in late June. Protests taking place in New York City. I know where that is. San Francisco, Miami, and right outside the Supreme Court of Washington, D.C. I imagine this could actually pick up even more today. Let's bring in Congressman Dan Crenshaw of Texas. Congressman, how do you gauge the Democrats' reaction to this and their supporters?
Well, it's unhinged, as you can see. That's the fact that they're now throwing rocks and bottles at police officers because they believe in abortion that badly. We're in an unhinged place right now in this public debate. And look, that was exactly the point of the leak, I think. It's one of the most egregious violations of the sanctity of the Supreme Court. And I hope there's serious consequences to it. But let's be honest. What this leaker probably believes is that they're going to be made a martyr. They're going to get a great gig on MSNBC. They might be disbarred, but they're going to get a great gig on the left. They're going to become a spokesperson for the pro-abortion movement, and that's a real shame. It also goes to show how the left thinks of the court. So if you believe that this leak will shift public opinion, then by definition you believe that the court's decisions are based on public opinion. But that's not what the court is. The court is not another legislative body. The court is supposed to be a group of legal experts that deliver their legal opinion and their interpretation of the law. So the left knows they don't have a really good case on Roe v. Wade when it comes to legal interpretation of the law. They know that because there's absolutely nothing in the Constitution that gives a right to an abortion.
Right.
And so the obvious next step is to say, well, look, that should be decided by the legislative process. They're terrified of that debate. And so they want to actually terrify people into not having the debate.
Right. You know, Congressman, so many people don't understand, you know, they hear about abortion, they don't. You just used the term pro-abortion. Many on the left say pro-choice. Then on the right, they call it pro-life. Ultimately, what we're talking about is ending a life. It is about, you know, on the left, they say terminating a fetus, a pregnancy with a fetus. On the right, they say you're killing a baby. Joe Biden yesterday on the tarmac before he went to Alabama, he used the language of the political right. He said abortion is aborting a child. Listen to the president.
The idea that we're going to make a judgment that is going to say that no one can make the judgment to choose to abort a child based on a decision by the Supreme Court, I think goes way overboard.
When you say it that way, it makes a difference. You're aborting, you're ending the life of a child.
Look, and all he's saying is what we all intuitively know, which is it's a child.
Right. It's
a child. It's always a child. If you want it, you call it your baby. You don't call it an extra body part. You call it your baby. But it seems like if you don't want it, you dehumanize it, right? You call it something else so that we don't see it as a child. And so sometimes Joe Biden's slip-ups are just a slip-up towards the truth, which I think is true in this case. And you noted something about they call it the pro-choice movement. It is a pro-abortion movement because, look, we don't protect all choices. You don't get to choose whatever you want if it harms someone else, especially. That's the nature of our laws. Have as much freedom as possible until you infringe on the rights of somebody else. And in this case, it's very clear. This is the pro-life argument that you're clearly infringing on the life of another, and it is indeed the life of another. And they try to twist that argument by saying, oh, well, it's not really another person. It's just an extra body part. But that's, of course, not true. It was scientifically, morally, and in a human sense, we really know that, and that's what Joe Biden actually said.
Congressman, let me play for you, or let all of us play for you. It's not me pushing the button. It's our amazing crew back there.
We'll all push the button.
Yeah, they found this soundbite of Joe Biden back in 2006. They did some digging. Listen to this. This is what he used to think about abortion.
I do not view abortion as a choice and a right. I think it's always a tragedy, and I think that it should be rare and safe. And I think we should be focusing on how to limit the number of abortions, and they ought to be able to have a common ground and consensus as to do that. I'm a bit of an odd man out in my party. I do not vote for funding for abortion. I voted against partial birth abortion. To limit it, and I vote for no restrictions on a woman's right to be able to have an abortion under Roe v. Wade. And so I made everybody angry.
I mean, what changed?
Well, he wanted he wanted the approval of the progressives in his party. I mean, that's what's changed. Joe Biden has never been really tethered to serious principles throughout his political career, so that's not surprising. What's unfortunate is the drastic shift in the Democrat Party. Right, it went from safe, legal, and rare to celebrate the abortion, have it on demand at any time in a pregnancy, celebrate the fact that you're doing so, and also have taxpayers pay for it. And so that position, which is the Democrat Party position, abortion on demand, anytime during the 9-month pregnancy, paid for by taxpayers, that's only supported by 17% of Americans. If you actually poll millennials, it's only 7% support that position.
Wow. So
look, they don't want to have this debate because the vast majority of Americans don't believe that you should have abortion on demand.
Right. He went on, everyone extrapolating from this, like Eric Swalwell, and saying they're going to start banning same-sex marriage and interracial marriage, as if Alito even dealt with that. I'm not even talking about abortion. I'm saying it should be a state thing, and he went on to show that. The other major issue, Congressman, is what's happening at the border. And we know the border is totally out of control, and we know the American people are tired of it in large numbers. And with what part of the Fox poll, we asked Title 42, which is a measure put in place during the pandemic. 63% of the country want to keep it, but yet the President of the United States still wants to let it evaporate in the third week in May. Who's he listening to? Who's he pleasing by doing that?
Again, it's the progressive wing. So in this case, very radical pro-immigrant groups that constantly advocate for this kind of thing and advocate for open borders. And so, look, I don't know why. Politically, it doesn't make any sense. If Democrats want to make it hard on us in November, all they have to do is secure the border right now and deliver us some energy independence, right? That's all they have to do. This is not that complicated. But it's like they don't want to win. It's like they don't care. So, look, people believe that keeping Title 42 is synonymous with border security. That's why it has such vast support. I mean, people just want the border secure. That's what it really comes down to. They don't really care how you do it. They just want it done. Title 42, because it allows for expedited removals, is, of course, the best pathway to that. And also, I think people intuitively understand that the administration contradicts itself here. Right. In some cases, they say, well, COVID's not over. I mean, we still want the mask here. We still want to mask children. But it's over at the border. You know, that's an obvious contradiction. And either be consistent and say, look, COVID really is over, but then come up with new solutions for the border. You absolutely have to do that. You have to disincentivize border crossings. And when you're just letting people loose inside the interior, letting people come across,
it's nuts.
and taking a hands-off approach that incentivizes more and more people to come. This is not that complicated of a problem, and it's not that complicated of a solution. They need to go back to the Trump policies, the Remain in Mexico policies, the asylum cooperation agreements that worked with Mexico and Northern Triangle countries to process asylum claims back in those countries. Right? Because, look, it turns out these asylum claims are not always valid. They're rarely actually valid. And in that case, people won't actually come because they know they have to process that in Mexico City or elsewhere.
All right. Dan Crenshaw, thanks so much. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.